Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and welcome to this week's episode of The Knife Guy. So what are we talking about today? I realized that title was a little bit clickbaity. I definitely did that on purpose, but it is partially true. What I'm referring to there is the fact that choosing the best of the best, like I always do at the end of every year, this year is exponentially more difficult. I didn't realize I thought, come like September of this year, I was like, man, there's some fierce competition this year. It's pretty crazy, but I think I've got it figured out. It'll take some real wild cards to throw my list, right? I said that multiple times in that video I did at the kind of the midway point of the year, which I always do, and in multiple live streams. I said it'll take some real wild cards. Well, wild cards were delivered, far more than I thought. I'm actually still waiting on one, which I haven't. That's part of the reason why I haven't done the video. But every year in December, I take between 30 and 50 knives, and I reduce them down to 10, right? I reduce them down to the 10 best knives of the year. And this typically is one of my biggest videos, right? You might think, who cares what you think? I would think that too. Who cares, right? I have my own little Metal Complex Knife Awards things, but these videos tend to do pretty well. They tend to get between like 40,000 and 100,000 views. I think one of them really got a ton, right? So there's a lot of people watching. I have to imagine a big percentage of those views come from what a lot of us would refer to as the core of this portion of the community, not the core knife community in general, right? Because ask a million people, you get a million answers on who that is. But the core of like this corner of the community, right? That's a lot of pressure on me, right? And I always say what I think, what I honestly think. I'm not necessarily pushed one direction or another by any one thing in particular. I always try to talk about a few really great budget knives, and then a few really great designs in general, really innovative stuff, and then just a few different categories of things, right? The number of absolutely incredible things that came out at every price point this year was mind-boggling. And part of the reason that I want to talk about this now, and number one, the reason that I say that I'm doomed, or whatever it is that I put in the title, is because I actually am. It does not matter what I choose. If I have to narrow it down to 10, right? The number of people with, their trousers burst into flames over my decision to choose this and not this. Like, it doesn't matter what I pick. That's going to be the response to, I would say like 70% of the people who watch will be furious about some choice that I did or didn't make. And I'm making this video to let a few people know that I'm okay with that, right? I know that I'm gonna be crucified no matter what, right? But people come to hear what I think, even if they hate me, right? I know that there are thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people who come to my channel to hear what I think, whether or not they respect my opinion. And the reason is because they know that I've handled a crap load of stuff. I'm not the only channel that handles a crap load of stuff. There's plenty of channels who do. But I definitely handle a lot of stuff, right? So people want to see what I think. And sometimes my tastes and my interests align with people, right? Many of you say that you have the exact same taste as me, and I appreciate that. But oftentimes it doesn't, right? There's tons of people who watch my channel who hate the vast majority of the knives that I really like, right? That's okay. I expect for that video to probably do pretty well, not necessarily immediately, but over the course of multiple months. Typically what the algorithm does with that video is it constantly feeds it to people over multiple months, and that's how it ends up getting so many views. But I expect it to generate a lot of attention, but my goal is to sit down and block out what I think other people might want me or expect me to say, because that's what I do, right? It's always funny to hear people be like, how could you not put this in there like everybody else and I always say the same thing. I'm like, I'm not concerned with what other people expect me to put on the list. I'm not making a list based on what I think people want to hear, right? Which is a stupid thing to expect from somebody who is an opinion you expect to be authentic, right? Like that would immediately make it not authentic. Why didn't this guy make a list that's exactly what the community would expect? Like knife for knife. Well, maybe it lines up that way in some ways, but it's like it's not constructed specifically that way or anti that way. It's not like I sit down and I go, how can I be as dark horse as possible? Or on the other side of the coin is, how can I appeal to as many people as possible and just like try to, not get crucified? Like, how can I make this as agreeable as possible in terms of... No, I don't do any of that. I sit down, I look at everything that I've reviewed, I go over everything again. Sometimes I rewatch videos. I'll definitely take knives out that are still here and handle them and compare them, and I come up with an honest top 10 list, right? Now, some of these knives, people always speculate, his list consists of knives that he can make them. It's whatever he can make the most money on. Oh! Yeah, that's no thought goes into that. People who say that, they don't watch my content. They definitely won't check to see if there's an affiliate link associated with. They won't dig at all. It's just surface level. It's like your typical brain rot TikTok detective, right? It's somebody who has had ad after ad after ad shoved in their face, and they're no longer able to differentiate between someone who is being authentic and someone who's trying to jam a product down their throat. They are no longer able to do that. It's just an applesauce-brained goof. Probably somebody who yells at clouds, most likely, right? But anyways, like, stop advertising cotton swabs to me. Damn you, clouds. Like that type of person, right? So, yeah, no, there will definitely be knives on my final list that have no commissionable links. And that has always been the case, right? There is no other outside influence with this last video than what do I actually think is the best. I have the opportunity to handle all of this stuff, right? The people who watch my channel have put me in a position where I have the opportunity to do this. So the worst thing that I could do, the biggest disservice that I could do to the community is give them some BS list that's not authentically my opinion, right? You don't want a list from me that's just what I think you want to hear. That doesn't do you any favors. Even if you hate the whole list, right? You still were given information that came from an authentic, opinionated foundation, right? It's real. You can be like, well, thanks for your honest opinion. I hate it, but at least you're honest. I feel like there's way more value in that, right? So yeah, as time has gone on, I think it's easy for people to assume that I've got sponsorships or that, this or that is influence of it. I still have no sponsorships. I have no employees. I have no editor. I don't have a person who makes my thumbnails. I don't have people who run my social media. It's just me. It's always been me. I've kept it that way. I think sometimes people describe me as slightly reclusive. At first I was like, slightly reclusive? I'm super social. I don't know. It's kind of fair. I am kind of slightly reclusive. But I intentionally, as soon as I feel pressure, like someone wants to be a part of Metal Complex, outside of Sergio from Kunwu, I have shut out pretty much everybody. But Sergio helped me develop my knife and was not pushy, right? But as far as how the channel operates, nobody is in control of anything, any element, between Patreon, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, Discord, all of this stuff that I do. It's all me, right? I have some mods on Discord, I guess, but as far as people who run the core elements of the channel, it's always been me. No sponsorships, no outside influence or anything like that. It's important to me, right? There's nothing I can do about people who don't believe it, whatever, right? But it's important to me to be able to deliver my honest opinion on this stuff. I've gotten 10 minutes into the video, and I probably should have said this at the beginning because people are going to speculate, right? These knives are on the table like he's really... In fact, oh man, there's already going to be comments down there. Some of those knives aren't even from 2024. These knives have nothing to do with my choices for 2020. In fact, I intentionally did not put any knives out here today that are being considered for the best knives of 2024. So you guys might have to check the comments. I'll go down there and correct you. I should have said that at the beginning, right? Because this is just going to invite, that type of thing. But no, nothing out here today is being considered for the best of 2024. The knife will have to have released in 2024. It can't be a prototype. It'll actually have to be a knife that people can physically get their hands on in 2024. And it cannot have released physically to the public before 2024, right? We had that issue with the Severn last year. It can't have like a 2023 prototype, right? Or it can have a 2023 prototype, but not a release till 2024. So if it's prototyped in the previous year, that doesn't count. It has to be a 2024 release, right? But I think people expect that list to be one thing or another, right? Some people come into that video because there's only so much you can put in the title, right? But people come into that video thinking, why aren't all of these knives like the best value? And I have to explain, it's not based on, it's not all the knives are based on value. We'll have a category for best value, right? But not all of them. And it's confusing because people jump around, right? They don't want to listen. They don't want context. They just want to see the knives, assume the context, and then pull their pants down and dump spaghetti all over the comment section, right? There's nothing I can do about that. So I have to jam as much context in as quick as possible and make it, easy to digest and easy to understand, right? And as honest as possible. And I only have 10 slots, right? Why don't you do more? Well, because the more slots, the more complicated the video, right? I have a video where I did the top 50 of something. Holy moly. That was like 6 hours of work between the editing and the filming, right? And doing all the extra stuff that you do after. That's complicated, right? Doing a top 20 is very time consuming. So I always start mid-year. I think this year I did it in July or August or September. I don't know. You can go back and see. I did a top 20 so far. And then I take that list and I reduce it. But I also realize, hey, there's knives yet to release. So this entire list could technically change. And this was a wild year because a crap load of that list did change. What I thought I would narrow it down to, my top 10, it changed dramatically. Winter Blade Co., I thought, man, it's going to be tough for anything. Yeah, Winter Blade Co., I know you guys know that they're up there. And they are. But, man, there was a lot of great stuff this year. It was tough. It's crazy. This is an exciting year, and it's an important year. Because, and again, I don't want to, I waited to say this until we're 15 minutes in, right? So a lot of the people with very short attention spans have dropped off. And I feel like those are the types of people who leave the loudest comments in this category. This is not an invitation. What I'm about to say, this is not an invitation to get political, right? If you are familiar with my channel, you know that I don't like that in the comments. I have never talked politics on this channel. I've never been open about my political, how I lean, right? And I'm never going to, because that's not what this channel is about. I also don't allow excessive political discussion in the comments. So don't do it, right? If you're new, understand that. Don't do it, right? But that being said, 2025 and beyond is going to do some pretty weird stuff to the prices of knives from a lot of places, right? So I feel like 2025 might be the start of a pretty frustrating experience for a lot of people. Now, again, though, it's not gloom and doom, right? It's what oftentimes what happens is it's an opportunity for companies who are used to a certain level of control and power in the market. If they're dealt a blow where they can't do that, they got to get creative, right? Sometimes you got companies who are so popular and so powerful, they just go, whatever, let's raise all the prices. And that sucks. We've seen that, right? A lot of companies just say, hey, screw it. The people who like our knives are going to pay whatever we tell them to pay. And as frustrating as that is, right? Because you'll always have people going, boycott, boycott, boycott. And then it does nothing and the company continues to succeed anyway because the buying audience for that brand will just continue to buy what they like. And I'm not coming down on you if you do that. Like, there are definitely companies and brands where I'm like, I like that company so much, I'm just going to do it, right? I hate that Spyderco keeps raising their prices, but I went ahead and bought a $270 Shaman. So I guess I'm kind of an idiot. But I'm just saying, like, you can't really do, like, screaming in the comments section, boycott, like, that's doing nothing. That's the same thing as standing on railroad tracks with a wiffle bat going, I'm not letting this train get by me. Like, that train's going to smash you. You're not going to do anything, right? All you can do is vote with your dollar. So if you're tired of a company doing something, right? People get mad at me. Like, you say you're tired of Spyderco, then you turn around and buy something, right? Vote with your dollar. Buy what you like, ignore what you don't, right? If not me, there'll be somebody else doing it, right? So, my point is, we're gonna have some crazy weather in the knife community, and a lot of it's gonna be frustrating, definitely. But you know, when you have like a lot of things happening that's making a lot of people mad, some companies will see opportunity, right? And a lot of times that's where you see innovation or, value pop out of nowhere, right? Makes it a lot easier for a gem to, or like a rose to rise up in a desert, so to speak, right? So that's the kind of stuff that I look for. That's what makes my position and my job really fun, is when you have oversaturation or you have a market where we see way too much of the same stuff, or you see stuff getting overpriced or whatever. I'm not interested in that stuff. I'm interested in the gem that arises from that pile of crap, which always happens. Always. And that's why these videos are so important. This year was crazy. We saw more releases from more companies than any other year, easily. Like, we had companies coming out with a new knife every week. That's crazy, right? We had way more boring stuff than we have ever had. But we also had some of the most interesting stuff ever. This year was, oh my goodness, it was crazy. And if you're not, me or somebody who's constantly paying attention to everything that's happening in the knife world, then you're statistically much more likely to just be aware of the oversaturation and the boring stuff, right? Unless you are ears to the ground all the time, constantly paying attention, you are much more likely to view the current state of the knife world as boring and oversaturated. As somebody whose job it is to pay attention all the time, or try to pay attention all the time, I can tell you factually, the stuff that released this year is exponentially more interesting, more impressive, right, than it was last year or the years before. It's amazing. This list is harder to create now. I have so many things that are worthy of top 10. It's going to be a nightmare to figure it out. I expect people to be mad. There's not enough room to include everything, right? Even when I try to squeeze it, I'm considering not even doing honorable mentions, because it makes some people more angry that something is an honorable mention and not an official mention, right? So I don't know. But it's going to be crazy. And I feel like, next year, again, even like what I said, right, more than likely, stuff is just going to keep getting expensive, and some things are going to, out of nowhere, become like comically expensive. Clown mode, bike horn, big shoe, goofy makeup expensive. That's what's going to happen, right? And there's definitely going to be a ceiling to it. it's not, like people are going to discuss and yell and scream and rah, like, but what it's going to come down to is whether or not people are actually buying it, right? The screaming and the crying and the making a big deal, all that, as many times as I've like pointed the finger at Benchmade and Spyderco and been like, you guys are crazy with these prices, right? All that. What it comes down to is what they're releasing and whether or not people are willing to pay it, right? So it's that final moment that matters. When they had this money and they went to buy a knife, did they buy our knife? If the answer is yes, great. They see that green check mark, right? If the answer is no, well, why? What? Right? That's the part that matters. And I feel like 2025 is going to be a tipping point for a lot of companies, right? I don't know who I keep saying Spyderco and Benchmade, right? So it sounds like I'm saying US versus other, not specifically. It's going to be chaos, right? So there's going to be a lot of people shifting who they like to spend money with to other companies, right? And for other reasons, maybe political reasons, some people will shift from doing one thing to another thing. Again, not an invitation to talk politics. Please don't, right? But we're just going to see that. I'm generalizing. We're going to see that, right? So it'll be interesting to see how some of these companies respond or deal with this shift. That's a guess. I could be completely wrong. We could see essentially no change in 2025. There's a chance we see essentially no change, right? I doubt it, but there's a chance. So who knows? Maybe next year's list will be way easier. Maybe next year's list will be way more boring, right? Maybe a lot of people have been saying, like every year I hear people say, oh, the knife world peaked out at this year, or knife world peaked out. No, it didn't. People just stopped being interested, or their favorite brands got too expensive, and rather than look at other things from other companies, they just stopped paying attention. That's what happens, right? If you've been paying attention, the knife world has only become more interesting at the same time that it's become more expensive and oversaturated with very, very boring things, right? Definitely. But as far as like wild and crazy, like amazing things or innovative things, oh yeah, definitely. That's not going to stop. It's going to keep, getting crazier. But a lot of people might say that if there was a time for the industry to have a hiccup, right? Perhaps 2025 is the year. I don't know. Maybe 2025's list will be the easiest list I've ever done. Right? I don't know. It's gonna be weird, but I wanted to make this video for the people who pay attention to my channel a lot. That video's coming. It will be done before the end of 2024, and whatever the 10 knives on there will be. Again, I have to include some inexpensive knives, probably at least 2, but then everything else, because I want to specifically highlight knives that are inexpensive and incredible. That has to be a category, right? But then there's going to be other categories of things. So it's not just going to be a top 10 of things that made Metal Complex go, wowie, wowie, wowie. Like, it can't just be that, right? Or top 10 most expensive exotic things that no one can get, but Metal Complex got somehow. Also definitely not, right? But the categories will kind of be whatever I decide that they'll be, and I'll try to get a wide spread, talk about things that I think are truly amazing and truly stand out for one reason or another. But there is absolutely no way that all of your favorite stuff is going to make it on that list, because it's going to be my list based on the stuff that I handled, right? So at least for those of you watching this video, go easy on me and understand it is a pretty heavy payload, right? I feel like there are going to be a lot of people, not everybody, right? Because not everybody cares that I exist, right? In fact, most people don't care that I exist. But it's the type of video that people watch, the best of the best after, let's see, 365 times 2 is, right? 350 plus 350, 600. 730. So counting the shorts and everything is 750 plus uploads, or maybe more. almost 800 uploads for people. All people are getting from this is Metal Complex is bad at math. But 800 or so, 750 to 800 uploads this year. That's a lot of stuff, right? Not very few people will handle as many knives as somebody like me. Again, I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just saying factually that's the case, right? So people are going to watch. And I've done all that. I've handled all that stuff. So I got to make my picks count. I got to do it, right? Weird episode of The Knife Guy, I know. Just wanted to get my thoughts out there and let you guys know what I'm thinking. I just spent 3 days, right after Thanksgiving, my wife and I got the flu, and I had taken time off before Thanksgiving, and I had planned this week to record extra content to get ready for Christmas break, and instead I was unable to record content, and then I had a kiddo get sick who's been here with me. Which has made it even more difficult to record content. So I've been set back about 5 days, which is rough, but I have enough content pre-recorded that I can deal with it. But I'm playing catch up right now, and at the same time trying to start to build this list. These final like top 10 of the year videos are definitely a multi-day process. Where I'm taking a large list and I'm eliminating things for one reason or another. And watching old content, like I said. So, but yeah, I'll make it worth your while, right? Have faith in me. I'll have some good picks on there. So, anyways, that's going to be it today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode of The Knife Guy. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.